Hi, I'm Ben Sasse.
And I'm Chris Stirewalt.
And this is Not Dead Yet. We're all dying, but some of us have been brought face to face with that reality.
However long each of us have to do it, though, we all want to live a good life.
One with meaning, love, and joy. And our guests are here to help us do exactly that.
On this episode, we begin with a lie, because the lie was that our guests would help us do this. But on this episode, we have no guests. We are the guests.
This is going to be lame.
Because I thought it will be lame, but I thought it would be important that we explain to our audience why we are doing this very weird thing.
Everybody does this.
Well, everybody does this, but very few people follow a nationally publicized diagnosis with radical severe cancer by launching a podcast. And it's weird. So
the ancient Egyptians,
why are we doing
this?
It? The ancient, certainly Ramses II's podcast was weird, but great, funny in its own way.
And then all those IP fights with Spotify he had, it was amazing.
Just ridiculous. Sphinxy 2 was a hit. Why are we doing this?
We're all under death sentence. We've all got numbered days, and just because you get a more precise or a more finite number doesn't change the fact that you need to redeem the time. And it's really boring to be dying for a while.
Okay,
you got to do something with yourself.
Okay, that's why you're doing this. We're doing this because we've been talking about doing something like this for
7 years, 6,
5 at least, yeah. For a long time, we've been talking about doing this, and my experience with you is that
this will be nice.
Is that I have worked very hard. No, I haven't had to work very hard. I have been diligent about not becoming friends with the people I cover and the people in politics. And I'm here to tell you, with most politicians, it's super easy. It's not a heavy lift. How would I resist the beguiling charms of the members of the United States Congress? But I think over time, we sort of wore each other down.
I'm confused. This is nice. I didn't expect this. I've been thrown off my game. Continue.
We sort of wore each other down. And I had, in various iterations, the idea that we should do something. And when you left the Senate, it was like, okay, now we really could do something. Neither you nor I could do something while you were still in office. And then after you left, it was like, well, now we actually could. Mm-hmm. And then we continued to fail to make that happen.
We kind of crossed the precipice in August and then again in October that we were definitely doing it.
Well, except for this. You and I are both perfectionists, but I'm a lazy perfectionist. And as a lazy perfectionist, it's great. You just give up. Whatever, when you're faced with adversity and you're not going to get what you want, you go, meh, there it goes. Too bad. You are an actual perfectionist. I have seen you write your notes to write a column for the Wall Street Journal, and it was a psychotic episode. Like, you have note card after note card because you want to get it right. And you said to me,
in a room full of type A people, I can make others look like a pothead. And that is not.
And you said to me, well, how do you write a column? And I was like, I don't know. You just write it. You just start going at it, and pretty soon you have about 600 words. Then you have to delete 150, and then you can finish. And that's how it goes. So you and I are very different kinds of people.
Just stay there for a second, because you're right, and I don't want to admit it in public often that you're right, but you're totally right about this. Letting the perfect be the enemy of the pretty dang good is a stupid way to write a column. And I've used that joke for years, that I wrote a 500-page dissertation because I didn't have time to write a 200-page dissertation, because the editing process is really, really hard. I stupidly have written columns on and off for the better part of a decade, and I always start with something 3 or 4x too long and then edit it all the way down to 699 or 750 or whatever the words are. And so it takes like 5x longer than it should take to do it. And I stupidly, regularly was 95% of the way to saying yes to our podcast, and then said, no, we need to refine the idea a little bit more. And I'm sorry.
No. But I figured it out. It took
a deadline.
Well, it took a deadline, but it also took radical chemotherapy to get you at a frequency like mine, right? So basically, the way you feel now is, I think, how many normal people feel most of the time.
Because you puked 6 times in the last 24 hours?
Well, I mean, it depends on whether I had been drinking or not. But my point is, you're well, here's a good example. We were on vacation with our wives, and we were going to have dinner, and dinner was at such and so time at such and so place. And I wrestled with the question of, if I go swimming, I'll have to shower, and I don't really want to do both. So I guess I'll just pass. And what did you do? Do you want to tell the class what you did?
I don't want to. It was mistakes were made.
He sprinted up a mountain. How many miles total would you say you ran?
I don't have any idea, but I knew that at the ridge of that mountain range, it couldn't funnel down anywhere other than to the town center where the restaurant was probably going to be. And so I just asked if somebody else could bring me shoes and a new shirt.
And getting to watch you run down, you were, I believe, doing a phone call while you were running down. And I thought,
this is apocryphal.
No, some work product was being achieved while you were completing this run. And I thought, here we have the difference between Ben Sasse and Chris Stirewalt, which is you are hyper. You need to go. You have to do all of this stuff. And I think the way I think about us, how we get, when you told me about your diagnosis, I thought, well, we're not going to do the podcast. We're not going to do anything like that. And
I thought we finally had an action-forcing event to get stuff across the finish line.
Exactly. That was a remarkable exchange, because my first thought when you told me was, my God, him and his family, and this is horrifying and all of this stuff. And your next thought was like, okay, on to the podcast. And I didn't know what to think. But as you and I have talked about it and gotten around it and talked about the premise, I've grown more comfortable with the idea. And I'm glad we're finally doing it.
Thank you. My wife had the best of all the names, but one of the reasons we're still doing this is just so we can do all the gallows humor of the new names. Okay. When we originally agreed on the podcast, it was going to be called Quick Study. Playing off the line a little bit from both C.S. Lewis and Einstein, that if you can't explain something to a 6th grader, you don't really understand it. And so we wanted an excuse to interview really smart people about complicated, interesting stuff, but in a way that allowed us to keep slowing it back down and saying, no, that was too complicated. Explain it more simply. My aunt from rural Dodge County, Nebraska, is smart, but she's busy and she doesn't know what you're talking about. Explain it simpler. So when we decided we were still going to do it, we weren't going to call it Quick Study anymore. You proposed, I'd rather die than do a podcast.
No, that is my wife. The dear and darling Jessica's proposal was, you should call it I'd rather die than do a podcast,
which was pretty good. My wife's was Dead Man Talking.
Yeah.
We have settled on Monty Python's Not Dead Yet.
Not Dead Yet.
Because we don't know how many episodes we're going to get.
And how many episodes any of us are going to get. Right?
Yes and amen.
And the hard part for
the post-production staff is how often I vomit while we record.
Yes. Prior to beginning this recording, I said that I've had a lot of people who I've interviewed who have wanted to throw up while I was talking to them, but never this frequency and never with this kind of enthusiasm.
And this one's not because of you, which is fresh for you.
I know. It's a different take. All right. In as much as you are willing to say, as much as you are comfortable saying, how are you? What do you have? What's the matter?
Thanks. I am a Lutero-Calvinist, but I grew up with a lot of Stoic German in my soul, so I don't like talking about myself. So let's go brief on the me part and a little bit longer on the interesting, nerdy cancer part. Because I have no biology background, but I've learned a lot in the 7 weeks since I was diagnosed. And a lot of it's pretty dang fascinating if it weren't my torso that was chock full of tumors. But I have metastasized stage 4 pancreatic cancer and apparently 4 other kinds of cancer because of the metastasization. So my likely cause of death will be liver failure. But I've got cancer in a bunch of different parts of my body because cancer was able able to hide out for 5 years or so. Again, I was diagnosed December 14th, I think. But cancer was probably hiding out in my pancreas for around 5 years. And the reason pancreas is the most fatal form of cancer, an over 97% death rate, is because your pancreas isn't very important. And so you rarely become symptomatic because of your pancreatic cancer. Cancer hides there and then launches tumors to other organs and systems. And that's how you figure out you have cancer that is no longer localized. So I am nauseous a lot because I have giant tumors in and around my spinal column. So I have to take a lot of morphine, and the management of those meds and that pain causes me to gag a lot, but I'm also ingesting a ton of poison. That's the socially polite term for it is chemo. But the three basic ways you treat cancer are surgical, cut it out, radiation, or chemotherapy. And then immunotherapy is kind of a subset of chemotherapy, which is what's the maximum dose of poison we can deliver to the tumors to try to keep them from killing off the person without the poison that we're using against the tumors being the thing that kills off the person. So I am based at MD Anderson Cancer Hospital in Houston now. But what our scientists have done, not just my treatment team, but capital S science over the last couple of decades is pretty amazing. Even though I'm in a really aggressive clinical trial that's poisoning me super aggressively every day, badly enough that weird side effects include things like all the skin coming off my face.
That was something.
I just bled out my face for about 6 days at one point. It was nasty and painful, but those are the side effects of being on a clinical trial that's going at these tumors really, really hard. And despite the fact that I'm doing all these super poisons, I'm only in the hospital a day and a half a week. And so I'm based, I'm a Nebraskan emotionally and in my heart and for all my holidays.
Nebraskans have emotions? Not familiar with that.
We do not have a world's greatest cancer hospital. So I spend my nights in Texas right now, but I'm only hospitalized in Houston the middle of the week. Most weeks. And then I'm free to do other stuff. I don't have a lot of energy. I sleep 15 to 16 hours a day. But I'd like to redeem the time, and I'm excited about this project as part of that.
Okay, as part of that, but your family is like a traveling circus, basically, is how I think of the Sasses as I have gotten to know them.
In our 9 years in the Senate, all the Capitol Police knew my kids because people would call us homeschoolers. We never thought of it that way. We thought of ourselves as hybrid schoolers, about 25% school, more than 25% private tutors, almost 25% traditional school to get sports eligible in Nebraska, and almost 25% special projects. And that would be like flipping houses on Capitol Hill or whatever, working at a cow-calf operation. But so my kids were like traveling salesmen having to get tutored in the Capitol for the 9 years we were around.
And where you go, they go, and you campaigned with them in Winnebago, and you
awesome.
did. And
I want to do that. I don't want to be in politics, but I want to run for office again. Living on a bus is great.
As much as you're willing to tell us, how's your family doing?
Thanks. I am unbelievably blessed by the Lord that my family is theologically rooted, and they know that death is terrible, but it is not the final word. And so all four of them are doing great. My wife, Melissa, my best friend of 33 years, wife of 31 and change, she's a rock, and she's wonderful through all this. She's accompanying me to and from all the ugly treatments. There's a lot of nasty stuff in pancreatic cancer, but also in the kind
Has she
of
tried to fight the cancer yet? She's a fierce mama bear. Has she tried to fight it yet?
I mean, she does know that these tumors in my back, your pancreas is just under the front right side of your rib cage, so that's the origin spot of the evil in me. But I have all these tumors in my back, and she has punched me in the back, and I know it was because she was mad at me, but she claims it was a shot at the tumor.
She'll keep going.
She's not an honest woman. She's tough, but she's not honest.
She's tough, but she's not honest.
My girls are 24 and 22, and they're doing great. My 24-year-old is a pilot in the Air Force, and my 22-year-old has the MCAT in 6 weeks. And so they're both working their tails off. Oh, sorry. We'll have to decide, audience, how much we edit out when Ben has,
the technicolor yawn.
Yes. My boy is a providential surprise, so he's a decade younger than big sisters. And, at the level of if you only got a few months to live, why do you go through a whole bunch of nasty treatment to try to live a few extra months?
Yeah.
One of my simplest answers is because I got a 14-year-old, and, God knows what he's doing in his life. And our son's name is Augustine, but we call him Breck. God knows what he's doing in Breck's life, and I'm not essential, but I'm useful some of the time. And so I want to wrap him upside the head and give him some more advice for a few extra months. And so I'm getting a lot of dad time with my 14-year-old, and all of them seem to be doing great. And one of the signs of that is gallows humor is alive and well at our house.
I have a son who's just a little bit older than yours, and your diagnosis caused me to think about, like, okay, It's funny. If my kids were 20, I'd be like, well, here we go.
Yeah. Launch.
The Lord is calling me home, and I don't want to go. I don't want to take poison. I don't want to deal with a bunch of stuff. I remember when my father was 81 and diagnosed, and they were like, here's what we're going to do. And he's like, no, no, sir. We're not going to do any of that. I've had a wonderful life, and I'm good. But 14, 15, you got to try to stay in the cut for your kid, and you got to try to do that, and not to be grandiose about what we're doing, this small thing that we're doing. I hope maybe for your kids and for my kids that we'll ask some questions and that we will do some things here so that later, if they, after we're both gone, maybe the day will come that our children will stop rolling their eyes at us and say, I wonder if my dad had anything on that. Because I know I went through that experience.
That's I wanted to flip the table, and that's a perfect place. Forgive me, morphine brain will intrude a lot. I have a more finite number, but we all are numbering our days. And as parents, we all know our project has been inadequate. We have not done it right. We've done pieces moderately well, and lots of it super crappy. And I am grateful to you, Chris, for being willing to do this with me, because it's our shared project, thinking about our kids and the nephews and nieces and grandkids of other friends we have, about ways to sort of, not to be grandiose, as you said, but some of the guests we have lined up for the next couple of weeks and couple of months are pretty great. And they're people I'm curious about their take on stuff. But I do want to do some of this questioning for your kids and my kids. And so why would you agree to do this with a guy who's not going to be a reliable co-partner going forward?
You're a more reliable co-partner under these circumstances that you were going to be without cancer. So I call it that. I think that's good. I know where to find you. You're only in two places now. In the previous circumstances, you could have been anywhere at any time, texting me from the back of a jet on your way to something. You're easier to find now. I think in my work as a journalist, and your former life as a politician, but certainly in academia, we get to meet a lot of interesting people, right? And usually when we meet them, we're supposed to ask them about, I'm supposed to ask them about how they're going to vote. I'm supposed to ask them about why they said this, why they did that. I'm supposed to be on the news. And fact-finding is something different than trying to get to what I hope we're trying to get to with this podcast. Because never do I get to say to somebody in an interview, hey, you seem cool. What's that like, right? How are you good at this? Why are you good at this? What makes you good at this? And the goal for me in this is that if we can talk to people who you and I find extraordinary, exemplary, awesome, cool, people with great stories to tell, if I can use you basically as the excuse to say, tell me something that I don't know about.
How would you explain it to a dead guy?
Exactly. How would you explain it? Just imagine you were talking to somebody who was really, and you never did drugs when you were a kid, so you're catching up on all of it now.
I have a lot of pill bottles on the podcasting deck.
That's called a trailer park mating call, and you know it.
We all are a little bit from West Virginia.
Well, you look like it. Now you look like it.
I don't believe in reincarnation, but I do think everybody in America has kind of got a little bit of Scotch-Irish Appalachian in them.
Scots-Irish, please.
And I appreciate you bringing the trailer park mating call to the podcast, episode 1.
As I say in a further episode, and I think this is true about you, and we'll wrap this up soon, but I think this is true about you, which is you are not a normal person, but you are fascinated by normal people. I talked about how I don't think you're actually funny, but you know what is funny. You do not. I'm
offended, but keep on.
How would you possibly have a sense of humor? You're a Calvinistic German from Nebraska whose father was a sports coach. No one could be funny under that. This is constitutionally impossible for that person to actually be funny, and yet you want to be funny, and you know who is funny. This
episode is my Make-A-Wish Foundation attempt to be funny.
You are with humor as Potter Stewart was with pornography. You know it when you see it. I feel that you're that way also about all the gross food that I and other people eat, where you're like, okay, I see that you're doing that, and that's probably good for you, and then you go and have a rice cake and take a quick jog. So I'm grateful to be your window into fallen humanity.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun interviewing some really fascinating folks, and I hope that the 37 friends of ours who listen to this will not only challenge us and question us and recommend other guests, but will wrestle through with us, again, not to be too serious, but the question of how do you redeem the time? Because we're all on the clock.
Amen. That's it for this week's episode. But next week, guess who wants to be our friend? Conan O'Brien is coming to join us.
He's cute.
He's adorable. And I think that's going to be good fun. We hope you'll like, review, and subscribe, and tell a friend about us. Feel free to email us with your thoughts, corrections, questions, or whatever else is on your mind. Write us at sassandstirewalt@gmail.com.
Because we wanted an easy email address.
Exactly. This podcast was produced by Scott Immergut with the help of our colleagues at the American Enterprise Institute. Thanks for listening, and keep living the good life.
Peace.